Once upon a time, there was a young woman named Sarah who had grown tired of the dating scene. She had been on countless first dates that never seemed to lead anywhere, and she was starting to lose hope. One day, she decided to try online dating and created a profile on a popular app. After swiping through countless profiles, Sarah finally matched with a man named Jack. He had a charming smile and seemed to be genuine in his profile, so Sarah decided to take a chance and meet him for a first date. They agreed to meet at a quaint little restaurant in the city, and Sarah was filled with excitement and nerves as she got ready. She picked out her favorite dress, did her hair and makeup, and set out to meet Jack. As she arrived at the restaurant, she saw Jack standing outside, waiting for her. He was even more handsome in person, and Sarah felt a flutter in her chest as she approached him. They sat down to dinner and talked for hours, laughing and sharing stories about their lives. Sarah was having a great time and thought she had finally found someone special. But as the night went on, Jack's demeanor started to change. He became more intense and started to make strange statements. Sarah tried to brush it off, thinking he was just a little nervous. But things took a dark turn when Jack suddenly slammed his fist on the table and started yelling. Sarah was frightened and didn't know what to do. She gathered her things and tried to leave, but Jack grabbed her arm and wouldn't let go. He told her that he had a secret and that he had multiple personalities. One of them was dangerous, and Sarah was in grave danger. Sarah was in shock and didn't know what to do. She managed to break free from Jack's grip and ran out of the restaurant as fast as she could. She stumbled down the street, looking for a place to hide. She could hear Jack's footsteps close behind her, and she was terrified. She finally stumbled upon a police station and ran inside, locking the door behind her. The police took her statement and started a manhunt for Jack, but he was never found. Sarah was left shaken, but grateful to be alive. She deleted her dating app and made a promise to always trust her instincts and never ignore the warning signs of danger. She started to focus on herself and her own happiness, and eventually met someone who treated her with the respect and love she deserved. From that day on, Sarah was never afraid to put herself out there again, and she lived happily ever after.
My first date was probably one of the scariest experiences of my life. It all started when I matched with a guy named Alex on a dating app. We started talking and hit it off pretty well. This is what I dreamed of before we met. We both loved hiking and exploring new places, so we decided to meet up for a hike in the mountains. I was nervous, but excited at the same time. I had never been on a hike with someone I had just met, but I was looking forward to getting to know Alex better. I packed my backpack with water, snacks, and all the necessary gear, and set off to the mountain trail. When I arrived at the trailhead, Alex was already there, waiting for me. He was tall, dark, and handsome, just like his pictures. We introduced ourselves and started hiking. The first few miles were great. We talked, laughed, and took in the stunning views of the mountains. However, things took a turn for the worse when we reached a remote area of the trail. The path was steep, rocky, and overgrown with vegetation. We had to use our hands to climb up the trail, and I was starting to feel uneasy. I had a feeling that something was not right. As we climbed higher, Alex's behavior changed. He became quiet and distant, and I could tell that he was not enjoying the hike anymore. I asked him if everything was okay, but he just shrugged and said he was tired. I was getting more and more nervous, and my instincts were telling me to turn back. But before I could say anything, Alex suddenly grabbed me and pushed me to the ground. I was stunned and couldn't believe what was happening. He straddled me, pinning my arms down, and his eyes were filled with rage. He started shouting at me, accusing me of being a fake and a liar. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. I tried to reason with him, but he was not listening. I screamed for help, but no one was around. I was alone with a stranger who was losing control. I thought I was going to die. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, Alex pulled out a knife. He held it to my throat, and I could feel the cold metal against my skin. He was shouting and threatening to kill me, and I was frozen with fear. I thought this was the end. But then, a miracle happened. A group of hikers appeared on the trail, and they heard my screams. They quickly called the police, and within minutes, Alex was overpowered and arrested. I was rescued, and I was grateful to be alive. The experience left me shaken and traumatized. I never went on another date again, and I never forgot the terror I felt that day. I learned the hard way to trust my instincts and always be careful when meeting someone for the first time. The scariest first date of my life taught me a valuable lesson about the dangers of online dating and the importance of staying safe. I was nervous as I stepped out of my car, staring up at the old Victorian mansion before me. It was a first date with a guy I'd met on a dating app. We had hit it off, chatting for hours every day, and he had convinced me to meet him here at his home. I took a deep breath and walked up the steps, ringing the doorbell. It was eerily silent as I waited for him to answer. I wondered if I was in the right place, but then the door creaked open and there he was, smiling at me. "Hi," he said, sounding cheerful. "Welcome to my home." I smiled back, trying to hide my nervousness. He led me inside, and I was struck by how beautiful the inside of the house was. It was a classic Victorian style with high ceilings, ornate molding, and elegant furnishings. "Wow," I said, looking around. "This is amazing." "Thank you," he replied. "I inherited it from my family. They built it in the late 1800s. He showed me around the house, pointing out the different rooms and their histories. It was fascinating, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. There was something about the place that felt off, like it was alive in a way that I couldn't quite put my finger on. We sat down in the parlor to chat, and I found myself opening up to him like I had never done before. He was kind and attentive, and I felt like I had finally found someone who understood me. But then, as the night went on, I started to notice strange things. The paintings on the wall seemed to move. The shadows grew longer and darker, and I could have sworn I heard whispers in the corners of the room. I tried to brush it off as my imagination, but then I heard a voice whisper in my ear. I spun around, but there was no one there. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I thought I heard something," I replied, shivering. "It's just the house," he said with a smile. "It's old and creaky. Nothing to be afraid of." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I was about to excuse myself to go home when he suddenly grabbed my arm. "Don't go," he said, his eyes gleaming. "I've been waiting for someone like you for so long. You're perfect for me." I tried to pull away, but he was too strong. He dragged me towards a door at the back of the room, and I screamed for help. But no one came, and he pushed me into the dark basement where I was trapped. I tried to run, but he caught me and threw me to the ground. I struggled and fought, but he was too strong. He laughed as he loomed over me, his eyes dark and evil. "You're mine now," he whispered as he lunged towards me. I screamed, but then everything went black. I woke up in a dark room, disoriented and confused. My head hurt and I was bound to a chair, unable to move. I heard footsteps coming towards me, and I felt fear grip my heart. It was him, and he was holding a knife. "I knew you were the one," he said with a twisted smile. "You're perfect for me. We're going to be together forever." I screamed, but my cries echoed and were absorbed by the walls of the basement. I tried to pull away from the chair, but my bindings were tight, and I was unable to move. As he approached me, I closed my eyes and prayed for someone to come and save me. But no one came, and I was left alone with him and his night. He started to talk to me, telling me his twisted plans for us. He believed that we were meant to be together, that we were soulmates. He ranted and raved, his words becoming more and more delusional as the night went on. And then, just as suddenly as he had grabbed me, he stopped. He put down the knife and took a step back, his expression changing from crazed to apologetic. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't know what came over me. I just get so carried away sometimes. I promise I won't hurt you." He untied me and helped me up, leading me back to the parlor. He sat with me, holding my hand and apologizing for what had happened. I was scared, but I didn't know what to do. I couldn't run, and I didn't know if I could trust him. And then, as I was about to make my escape, the front door burst open and the police rushed in. They had received a tip from a neighbor who had heard my screams and called for help. I was saved, and he was taken away in handcuffs. As I was giving my statement to the police, I couldn't help but think about how lucky I was to have escaped. I realized that sometimes first impressions can be deceiving and that you never really know someone until it's too late. I was grateful to be alive and safe, but the memory of that night still haunts me. I never went on a first date again, choosing instead to stay at home and keep to myself. But sometimes I still hear whispers in the darkness, and I can't shake the feeling that I was meant to be with him, that he was right, and that we were soulmates after all. And then I realized that it was just a nightmare, a scary first date that thankfully was not true. I was always skeptical of online dating. I never thought I'd find love through a website, but I was getting lonely and decided to give it a shot. That's when I met Mark. He was charming, funny, and we had a lot in common. He was a software engineer just like me, and we bonded over our shared love of technology. After weeks of talking, we finally agreed to meet in person for our first date. I was nervous and excited at the same time. I dressed up in my best clothes and put on some makeup. I arrived at the restaurant a little early and ordered a glass of wine to calm my nerves. Mark arrived soon after, and I was taken aback by how handsome he was in person. He was even better looking than his pictures on the dating website. We sat down and started chatting over dinner. Everything was going well. We laughed, shared stories, and talked about our future plans. I was having the time of my life, and I felt like I had found someone special. But things took a turn for the worse when we finished eating. Mark suggested we go for a walk in the park nearby. I agreed, thinking it would be a romantic end to the perfect date. However, as soon as we stepped out of the restaurant, Mark's demeanor changed. He became quiet and distant, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As we walked, Mark's behavior became more and more erratic. He started mumbling to himself and would suddenly stop in his tracks, looking around like he was searching for something. I tried to make small talk, but he barely responded. I started to get scared and suggested we go back to the restaurant, but he refused. As we continued walking, Mark's behavior became even more bizarre. He started running and shouting, attracting the attention of everyone around us. I was mortified and wanted to leave, but I was also scared. I didn't know what he was capable of. The next thing I knew, Mark grabbed me by the arm and pulled me down a dark alleyway. I tried to pull away, but he was too strong. I was terrified, and I started to panic. Mark started ranting about how he had been followed and how someone was trying to kill him. He was delusional, and I realized he was not the person I thought he was. I was trapped, and I didn't know what to do. I tried to reason with him, but he wasn't listening. I was starting to feel hopeless when suddenly I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around to see 2 police officers running towards us. They grabbed Mark and took him away, while I stood there in shock, trying to comprehend what had just happened. I was grateful for the police officers' help, but the experience left me shaken. I never imagined my first date would end like that. I was lucky to escape unharmed, but the experience left me scarred. I never went on another date with someone I met online again. The thought of ending up in a dangerous situation like that again was too frightening to even consider. In conclusion, I learned that you never know who you are dealing with when it comes to online dating. It's important to be cautious and trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. I learned that lesson the hard way, and I never want to experience anything like that again. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to like this video to support the channel and subscribe if you enjoy hearing teeth, rattling horror stories. Comment below and tell us what you think about this week's suspenseful, shocking, scary thriller. And remember, don't be afraid.